All right, everybody. Wednesday, June 5th. It's around 7 o'clock, wrapping up work here. And we are joined by Kevin Drones, QB1's Pops. Are you in Texas right now? The sun's still out, which looks
I
nice.
am. I am. I'm in Houston.
Down in Houston, from Houston, Texas, hailing from Galveston. He is the assistant head coach at Clearbrook High School, the father of Kevin Drones and Kendall Drones, who is a track star at Shadow Creek, and Jeremiah Byers, who is in his final year at Florida State with the Seminoles. Quite an athletic family from top to bottom. Who wins? I'm not going to have the brothers fight the sister, but who wins in a fight between Jeremiah and Kyron?
I don't know. It's me. Where is it being held?
That's a great question. I know we got a little bit of a size differential. What if it's just trying to push somebody off a balance beam? I think that's fair. It evens it out a little bit. The size, you're gonna have to use some athleticism to stay on there.
I don't know. It's gonna be a good one. Kyron's pretty strong.
So, Coach, I wanted to take a second and just learn a little bit about you. I know that you went to college at Texas State, but can you just fill us in a little bit on your background, your upbringing, and also your journey into coaching?
Well, my dad's a coach, so kind of been my whole life. So I think he got the job maybe a year old. So I grew up in the field house, and it wasn't the field houses of today. It was boring. It was 2 file cabinets and a bunch of hard chairs and nothing to hang out. So I hung out there all day, and those were no huddle back then. So it was them watching the film. They had to be at the field house to watch the film. So that's kind of how I grew up. Just whatever sport was going on, that's what I was playing. Football, basketball, baseball. That's what I did. So when I got out of school, did some other things, and everything was getting back to sports. And I finally just went on and started coaching. And first year we ended up going to state, losing. That's the picture that you showed. Actually, it was that semifinal game when we clinched to go to state. And then went to a couple of places, had a lot of success, and ended up going back home to Galveston, be defensive coordinator. Stayed there for a couple of years. That's where I coached Mike Evans. And so I had some success there. And then we went back and ended up at Shadow Creek and got to coach Kiren. And, that was kind of, I wanted the kids to always go to school where I was. And so, live out a dream, really, a dream that I didn't get to do. So won a state championship with him as a quarterback. We lose it his sophomore year. He wasn't a starter. And, his junior year, we come back and go 16-0 with him as a starter. And, just a dream, So I got a lot of buddies that we had a picture where we got the gold medals in our mouth. And I got a buddy that, like, every time you post that picture, I'm so jealous of it, So, and just kind of raise the kids around sports. My wife played softball in college. So we kind of, they played everything from the age of 3, whatever they could be put in, starting off at the YMCA and to travel ball. So I've kind of done the gamut. Many vacations were just at tournaments. It wasn't really vacations. So, but it's paying off. So, we're 3 for 3. All 3 of them are playing sports, living out their dream. And I've been fortunate, hadn't had to pay for school.
So just for the listeners here that may come from other states, winning a state championship in Texas is not like winning a state championship in any other state. There's Texas, and then there's Florida, and then all the other states have about, it seems like 20 different state champions that come out every year. It seems like everybody wins state champions, but if you win a state championship in Texas, that is one hell of an accomplishment, and that is so special to do it with your son. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about kind of your relationship with Kiren in high school. So when we were talking with Kayla King, her father coached her in high school, also coached Liz Kitley. But how did you manage the relationship of father and coach at the same time? Now, I know you weren't specifically coaching his position, but how were you able to put on either both of those hats at the same time, or leave one hat at the facility and one hat at home?
Never wanted to coach him. I was always on defense. He was on offense. Never wanted to be in those meetings. I remember freshman year, and you got quarterbacks coming from 2 different junior highs, You know, when they start discussing who's going to be the A-team quarterback or the B-team quarterback, I left. Like, you know, I never wanted to, whatever he got, he was going to earn. And I remember when we transferred to Shadow Creek, and, you know, we had a meeting. They already had a quarterback there. I didn't know. It didn't matter. I wanted him in a situation where he was going to be competitive. He was going to be pushed by other athletes with the same goals, wanting to play college football or college sports at the time, because at the time, Kyron thought he was a basketball player. So, you know, we separated. The rule was, what if he didn't like something, or, you know, wanted to discuss something that was going on football wise or playing time or whatever, then we'll discuss it when we get in the truck. Like, we're not going to discuss at the school. When we get in the truck, we can discuss it. But it was tough that sophomore year when he was, you know, he was been the backup and had never been a backup in anything. His freshman year, he's on the varsity basketball, and he's 6 man off the bench. So he was so used to playing, and he's going, you know, we went to the state championship that year, and we're 15-0 going to state championship. The kid that's in front of him is all state. And, you know, I had to have a talk. Like, you know, he's frustrated. And I remember one particular time where at halftime he started. Kid got disciplined or whatever, and he started the game. And, you know, first drive we punted. Second drive we score in 2 plays. So we're up 7-0. Defensively, we're struggling because we can't stop them. But they're not scoring. They're just running the ball, running the clock on purpose. We had a potent offense. And second quarter comes, and the other kid goes out. And I had told Kiren on Wednesday, like, look, I don't know how long you're going to play. You know, if you're going to play, whatever it is, you can control one thing, your effort and your attitude. It's the only thing you have control over. You know, end every possession with a kick. And so we get in at halftime, because the first play, the kid fumbles the exchange, they score 7-7. So we go in halftime, and I knew it. I didn't want to see him. And right when I hit the door, he's looking at me, and he's ready. And I was like, not now. We're not doing this. But that was the biggest thing. And I, you know, just being honest with him and just telling him, like, your time is going to come when it's supposed to. You know, it's that during that season, I had to talk to him and tell him, like, look, it's some things you can do that kid can't do, but it's some things that kid can do that you can't do. You know, that kid was probably 5'6", 5'5", but he was like lightning fast. And, you know, it was just some things that, and I think it helped. You know, he sat there and he watched, and I had to do some tricks as a dad, because I knew with him sitting on the bench, he was going to be thinking about basketball. Because once November hit and those kids start going to tournaments, and he's going to be thinking, like, why am I sitting out here when I could be going to play, and I'm losing traction basketball at a new school. And so every Sunday when we'd go to meet, I would let him go to the gym and shoot. So he would go and shoot. So he didn't miss a beat from the time we lost the state championship, and he slid right in. I think the second game he hit 20 points, and it looked like he had been playing for the last 3 months, but he had been shooting every month. So, I mean, every week. So that our separation was just, you know, we kind of left the facility, and I just became dad, and he had issues, and you need to go talk to the offense coordinator, to go talk to the head coach. I'm not going to do that for you. You got to learn to advocate for yourself.
So Alex Arnett asked a really good question that jives with this. And I want to know, so obviously that's the common song and dance. I remember when Jabril Peppers and Rashawn Gary thought they were going to be playing in the NBA. But was there a moment when you knew that Kiren had it as a Power 5 quarterback? Like whether it's his sophomore year, or I don't know if you guided him towards football, but was there a moment where you said, okay, he's got a real chance to be a contributor at a Power 5 school at the quarterback position?
So Kiren was a good basketball player, but I knew Kiren was going to be 6'7", 6'8". He wasn't going to jump out the gym. You know, he had a good shot, but I had coached Mike Evans. And Mike was really good, and he was 6'5", but like I told Mike, you play the post. Who are you guarding at the next level? Like you play with your back to the basket. You don't shoot threes all the time. Who are you guarding at the next level? You have to guard a point, So if you come to football and you trust us, you'll play in the SEC or the Big 12. I didn't know you were going to play both of them. But, so with Kyron, it was, I didn't let him play quarterback in Little League, because his daddy's ball. And I never wanted to be involved in that. So, and they don't throw the ball in Little League back then.
That's some advanced thinking there. You don't have to deal with the daddy ball stuff, and you're also not being developed as a quarterback in fourth grade. I mean, that's some next level thinking.
So just play and figure out if you like it. And Kyron, he didn't want to be a quarterback. Like, he fought it, but he could naturally throw the ball. And at that time, Kyron wasn't like super fast. So I'm thinking, like, where can you go play long term? What position can you play? Well, at quarterback, you don't have to be stupid fast. You're long, you can throw the ball, you're tough. So I'm going to guide you to quarterback at 7th grade. And that's what we did. And, when I would say the first time, which probably his freshman year, he had a great freshman year, but he's playing against freshmen. And that's when you kind of saw it. And then I would say the first time I really was like, oh, snap, this kid's got something. He's special. Is he came in late in the state game. Kid ran 99-yard touchdown, the quarterback, and ended up like pulling up. And Kiren had to come in for 2-point conversion first time. And he hadn't taken a snap or thrown a pass probably in like 4 weeks. The last district game he played, it takes 6 games to win the state championship. So we're in the state championship, and first play, we need the 2-point conversion. We're down to Highland Park. Chandler Morris is the quarterback. And he keeps it and scores. Option, keep, scores, and then comes back in first play. He throws a dig route, and we're rolling, moving, and then we pull him, and he gets sacked or whatever. And the whole time going home, he's telling me, like, Dad, if they leave me in, we're gonna win it. If they leave me in, we win. He's the whole time back from Dallas, and I'm like, hey, it's yours now. You don't have to worry about it. It's your job now, whatever. And that first game, his junior year, is when I really saw, like, first of all, like, sacrifice. That's when I knew because to be a Division I quarterback, you got to do more than just throw or be able to play. You have to have a difference factor. And I watched him basically from the time they left Houston Hoops. They went to Vegas for the last tournament, or the EYBL tournament, and he didn't pick up the basketball. And I told him, like, I can't let you go to the gym, because we didn't have the backup. Like, we were all hands on deck for 16 weeks. Like, we didn't let him run the ball until the state championship, really. So it's like, I can't let you go in the gym. You can't pick up a basketball, because if you go in the gym, you're going to try to dunk and do all this other stuff. And we can't risk it. Like, it's if you don't make it, then we're going to be in trouble. We're going to have a backup quarterback. And we have the team to go win it. And he did. He sacrificed. And that first game, he kind of, I still remember first pass was a touchdown, and he threw for 200 and almost 300 yards and a couple of touchdowns, and we put up 60. And it was like, okay, well, maybe.
That level of maturity out of a teenager is so abnormal. If I could share some of the names of some of the people that were playing basketball in McComas or elsewhere during football season, we'd be raising some eyebrows.
Yeah.
But that's special. And my question, so when he graduates, and goes to Baylor, spends 2 years at Baylor. I mean, we're talking about an Elite 11 quarterback, top 150 prospect at quarterback. How did you approach your role? Because ultimately it's Kyron's decision, it's his future. But how did you approach your role as Kyron navigated the transfer portal? And a follow-up to that is, how did you view recruitment for Kiren as a transfer versus Kiren as a high school kid? Because I feel like that process is extremely different.
Yeah. Coming out of high school, it was COVID. We win the state championship. At the time, our basketball team is number 2 in the state. So he's going straight into that. We got a chance to win it. And so we can't take any trips until after the state tournament, which is the spring break. So I booked everything after that. Like, we were supposed to fly in Atlanta, go to Clemson, go to Auburn, go to Georgia Tech. And all of a sudden everything shuts down. And we have to do everything through FaceTime. And, he went from no offers. He got his first offer on the way to the state championship, William and Mary. And then by the end of January, 1st of February, he's got 26.
Damn, so he didn't even really get the recruiting song and dance that everybody gets either.
Never took an official visit.
Wow.
When we went to Baylor, I had to buy the ticket. We had to go in with everybody else and sit in the stands. I took him to a game just so he could see it before he committed, just because at that time, I don't know if you remember, all the quarterbacks were like just committing. So,
right.
If once a quarterback commits, now, all right, that school's off the board. I think the day before we were supposed to do our virtual visit to Michigan State, day before the guy calls, the guy just committed. So canceled. So he never got any visits. And I always told him, I'm like, at the end of the day, Baylor was the last Power 5 school in Texas that didn't have a quarterback. So we took it. It was great experience. And I tell people, no hard feelings with Baylor. It was great for him, and it's what he needed at 17 because he graduated early, and he needed to be close to home. And that first year they won the Big 12. They beat Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. He learned a lot from those guys, a lot of older guys. Kind of reminds me of this Virginia Tech group that all came back. Like that group with Jalen Petrie and them all came back. And, when we get to the portal, it's scary, because you don't know. Like, you get in and you don't know who's going to be out there. And, I had both boys were in the portal at the same time. So, you knew it was coming. He decided after the last game that he wasn't going to play in the bowl because as a quarterback, you got to get in early and let people know you're in early. Do some due diligence, on mine as a coach, just put some feelers out there. And I still remember that first morning, he didn't get a lot of calls, got some. And then Bowen showed up in Waco, and that did it. Like, after we talked to him, I talked to him after that meeting. They went to lunch, and he was like, I really like this guy. And we went, that was the first visit we went on, and the only visit. We never went on another visit. So he committed on the trip. And that's when I learned about Hokie Nation, because he took a picture of his feet in the Philadelphia airport, and all of a sudden my phone started blowing up. They're on the message boards going, "Hey, we're in Philadelphia. You think if there's a connecting flight to Roanoke, you think he's coming here?" And we know Bowen went down there Friday. I'm like, dude, this is wild. And I told him, I said, you thought Waco was small. This is Mayberry.
It was such an interesting time, and it's so different than the only way that I can really explain it with player movement is, especially at other schools, because I think Coach Pry's done a tremendous job keeping this core together of what seems to be an extremely talented offense. But when you came in the locker room after a bowl game, or you came in the locker room after the season ends, there's no exactly who's going to be there that next fall. You know exactly who's going to be running it back. The first player that I remember was talking about leaving was Calvin Klein. He didn't make the underwear. but he was a tight end, and he was like the first guy. I didn't even know transferring really was a thing, and he ends up moving on to another university. But I got to ask, when you first got experience Virginia Tech, ultimately, what do you think drove Kiren to make that decision? Like when you all were coming back and talking about it, like was it after that visit, signed, sealed, delivered, it's a wrap? Or what do you think really sold ultimately your entire family on Virginia Tech?
At that time, Kyron wanted somebody that wanted him. It wasn't about promises. It wasn't about how far the school was. That's why I never posted offers as a transfer. It was a real business decision. It was, he wanted it to happen organically. He wanted, like, who really wanted him. And it went a long way. Bowen showed up that first day. And I think, and then he and Ali hit it off while we were there.
Mm-hmm.
We got in that Saturday night. They ended up going out. They had already kind of linked up through social media. So I think that was the biggest thing, just who really wanted him. And he just wanted that opportunity. He didn't want any promises. He just wanted a chance.
And I think what made it so special, and you alluded to this earlier, was beginning of the season, it's Grant's job. And watching both of them throughout that season and how they handled it, it'd have been very, very easy for Kyron to come to a school, feel like you're going through the same song and dance, teams not winning a whole lot, not playing, not having a huge impact. And I think him having that experience early on in high school obviously played a huge, huge part in his ability to handle that. But what I love most about watching your son play is if you just talk to him for like a minute, like, okay, this guy's quiet, a little reserved, doesn't say a whole lot, not flashy, not on social media. He gets in that Purdue game and his play is so vocal, so aggressive, so anti who you really see on the microphone. He is seeking out running people over. And I think the most pivotal moment of last season was that first long touchdown against Pittsburgh. He has the long touchdown, and I had said for the first 4 weeks of the season, I was like, we just look like we don't have life. We don't look like we have swagger. We don't look like we are taking it to other people. We're not the Hammer in this case at all. And he runs down the field, and every single Pittsburgh player he runs by, he's letting them know, I'm here. I'm here to get after it. And that was infectious around the entire team. Why do you think that comes out on the football field? Like, what do you think that comes from?
I think Kiren is, we've always done it from childhood. Like, it's a difference between the lines than how you are off the field. Like, you can get away with, it's funny because we just had a meeting and my wife brought up that, and I'm not proud of this, but when they were younger, they got away with some language or whatever, whatever they wanted to do on the field and kind of got excused. But, they knew a difference when they got off the court or wherever it was. Like, you got to be competitive and you can't back down. I think, the Purdue deal, I promise you that was 3 years or 2 years of not playing. And, that was like, I got to get this in. You got to get that first hit in college. And he hadn't really, other than coming in and running the ball a little bit, he hadn't really had the opportunity to play. So I think the adrenaline just got in. The Pittsburgh deal, I remember that day. He's coming off the 2 losses. He felt bad behind the Rutgers deal or the Marshall. And that's when he apologized to Pride. But me and my daughter went to the hotel before the game. And, that was the first week that he felt like he didn't have to look over his shoulder and he didn't have to be perfect. Up until then, he thought he had to be perfect. He kept waiting, is Grant coming back? And Pride kind of gave him that confidence when he apologized and he said, this team's going to win a lot of games behind you. And it kind of relieved him. And he kind of cut loose that week. And I'm like, at that time, I'm like, dude, just go be you. They brought you here to be you, not, you can't be perfect. And he just relaxed. And you could tell from the hotel that he was different. It was just a different look. And I think I was laughing because I ended up telling my daughter, because all those celebrations hadn't really been him. He goes in and the Jordan pose or whatever in the touchdown. I was like, it was like 3 years of pent up. I haven't
Yeah.
played. I'm cutting it all loose. I'm letting it all out today. And
Mm-hmm.
and I think just being relaxed and being able to play and not looking over your shoulder went a long way that night.
And I think again, not just having that realization of breaking through and having a moment that he's probably thought about, trained for, ran for, lifted for years. It was the attitude that Virginia Tech embraced in the middle of that season. It was another moment that I thought stood out was there was a pile up on like the 40-yard line on like a 3rd and 1 against Wake Forest. And some offensive lineman pushes him. And you watch, I don't know if the team would have done this if they pushed anybody, but they pushed him and the entire offense stepped forward and pushed him back. And people may say, oh, it's just a brouhaha. That is an embodiment of the attitude and the effort and the team camaraderie that you need to have to be successful. And not only was he going through kind of looking over his shoulder, but the offense ultimately had to change. Like there is this perception, I think, that every player is a work in progress and every coach is a finished product. Like you watched Kyron Drones mature and you watched Tyler Bowen mature and change over the course of the year to fit the players' needs.
And as a coach, that's tough to do. It's tough to go in to a situation, one, to have 2 quarterbacks that you feel that can play. 2 different game plans. And to do that midstream, it was going to take a little time to figure out. Like we've worked these plays all fall camp, all spring, and then okay, we got to make this shift. But okay, this playbook's gone. Let's figure this out. Where you may have only had a package for your backup, now you got to evolve this game plan. And as weeks go on, more film, and you gotta you don't want to put too much on that guy's plate. It's difficult as a coach, and I applaud the job they did. It just worked out, and I always felt like they could get in a bowl. Even when it was 4-4, and I felt like I had to kind of penciled in, and I felt like we were going to get there anyway. And they did that coaching staff did an outstanding job. Those kids did a great job of staying the course, and I'm still aligned from pride and blocking out the noise. And going on the road and winning those games. I remember in Boston College, that was huge, and just the way they responded.
It has to be the most fun 7-6 football season of all time. I've never had more fun going 7-6, but flipping the page to next year, there is so much noise. There are so many congratulations in advance. Hell, Kyron's out working out with, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward in Miami. But again, like, can you just speak to how he's handling the distractions, but also in this age of college football, maximizing the opportunity from an NIL perspective, a marketing perspective, a connections perspective? Like, that's really cool that he has the opportunity to go out there and train with those guys, to go out there and connect with the different businesses, see different parts of the world where, 10 years ago, guys probably aren't doing that. And the guys that are doing it are not focused on their craft. And it doesn't seem like he's sacrificing either one.
No, he's always been a grinder. So that doesn't change. I think, they feel like they have a lot to prove. And they've gotten some opportunities that in the past hadn't been afforded to college students. They can kind of pick up and go and meet each other. And it was funny when that came out, everybody assumed like, oh, they just all kind of linked up. They've been training together since 10th grade. Kyron and Cam have been training together since 9th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade. And they're cousins. So that wasn't a big deal. It was just a location, and it just happened that Cam, the spring breaks didn't match. So it just Cam's in a location like Miami, so they end up in Miami, which is what a college student wants to do is spring break. So you know,
It's funny. It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because all the dialogue around it was like, are they getting together for some sort of Vogue magazine shoot or some sort of something going on?
No, because normally they do it in Midtown Houston by the Galleria at their warehouse. They just changed locales because Cam was in school and Fedora and Kyron were out, so they went out there to meet. So, and then this summer they were here in Houston, and we got a chance. He got a chance to bring some people home. Ali's been he's been down here a couple of times. Felton was able to come down and work out and train. So. That's probably been the best part, and they're locked in. I can tell you that.
So moving into rapid fire here, Coach. Question for you: what is the best barbecue in Texas?
I would say mine.
Okay. What's the walk me through if when Ali and Quan and all of them are coming down and you're throwing down on the grill, what are we eating for dinner?
Well, Ali's hard because he doesn't eat pork, so he doesn't eat the ribs. What is Ali? Chicken. He's a chicken guy. So yeah, it's gonna be chicken. If I'm doing it, if I'm gonna pull the pit out, it's gonna be ribs, chicken, sausage. Boudin's gonna be on there, and then we'll probably have smoked queso as well.
So wait, hold on. Why are we not doing? It sounds like we need to set up a Coach Drones pig roast for one of the games this year. Can we get that? Can we get that set up?
I don't get there in time. I never get to tailgate. That's why I'm excited about the Nashville deal because we actually play on Thursday, so I'll get out there on Friday. But normally I am hitting the airport 6 a.m. I'm in Charlotte and I'm speeding 2.5 hours to Blacksburg and got time to watch probably the tail end before I head in because go watch warm-ups. So I don't have a whole lot of time when I get to Blacksburg. It's easier getting to away games than actually Blacksburg.
It's a bummer that SMU isn't on the schedule this year. That'd have been too easy for you.
It's funny. I'm gonna miss the Miami because we play on Friday. So my wife and them are making a girls trip out of it. So they're going. And but the next day, Jeremiah and them play SMU at Dallas. So I'll be in Dallas then on the 28th.
There you go. Favorite players growing up: football, basketball. Usually there's a little transitive property, so it's probably Kyron's favorite players. But who are some of your favorite players growing up?
I'm a Cowboys fan, so growing up, it would be actually growing up, I was a Earl Campbell fan, and then as I got in like high school, college, it became like the Dallas Cowboys, Aikman, and and then they trained. I went to school in San Marcos, 30 minutes. They trained 30 minutes in Austin, so I got a chance to go to their training camps and stuff. So Emmett and Michael Irvin, and got to see Dion and them out there. So I was a big Cowboys fan. Basketball wise, Lakers fan. So I like Magic Johnson.
I'm a Celtics guy. I'm hoping that we can finally push through and get it done. And rest in peace to Larry Allen. If y'all are listening, y'all are football fans, and you don't watch offensive line play, y'all need to get on YouTube and watch some Larry Allen highlight tapes. Get yourself cultured on that. I don't know if anyone's done it better than Larry Allen.
No.
So we're gonna see you in Nashville. So are we gonna see you at the Nash Bash? We're headed down to Tin Roof. Okay. Oh, yeah. Just making sure. So you're clean. No, nothing going on that weekend.
No, we play that Thursday, so I'll be there Friday.
Okay. We're gonna need the whole Drones family down at Tin Roof. It's gonna be awesome. If you haven't got your tickets yet,
gonna be a bunch of them.
That's right. Can you give me a funny Kyron childhood memory? Something that stands out.
Funny Kyron childhood memory. I'm looking at my wife because I'm trying to think of the basketball stuff when they thought they were 10 feet tall, was going after everybody. Yeah. She's bringing up like basketball, the travel league basketball, and they would, if any at that time, I thought Kiren may have had anger issues because if you fouled him, it was like screaming no because he's gonna chase you down and run. I mean, it was like biting the bottom lip. That deal. It was So I didn't know what kind of basketball player he was gonna be. I was like, he's a fighter. I don't know how good of a basketball player he's gonna be.
I'll tell you what, if you listen to Kiren talk and you watch his mannerisms, I said this when the first time I saw him interviewed. I said he's got a little bit of that Jimmy Butler persona to him. If you close your eyes, you listen to him talk, he does sound a little bit like Jimmy Butler. What was your favorite moment or play from last season? Doesn't have to be one that was super fantastic, but was there a moment last year that really stood out to you?
You know what? It's funny. Because me and him just talked about this. Early in that Tulane game, he fumbled, and they run it back. It's like instant replay of the Pittsburgh deal, and then when he went in and scored, and they had to review, and you could tell he felt like he got away with one. When it came back as a touchdown. And I told my wife, because he never shows emotion like that, but he sat on the bench and he hit his helmet kind of on the ground. He never took it out of his hand. He just kind of hit it on the ground, frustrated with himself. And I told my wife, I said, it's about to be trouble for whoever tries to tackle him now. He's about to go in mode. So I felt like with this weather, now he's fixing to shame on you if you try to tackle him. Like it's gonna be one of those days. Like he got away with one. He knows he's it goes wrong. It could have been worse than what it was. And just to see him, never like really sweat. Even the Pittsburgh, my daughter had to calm me down when he fumbled in the Pittsburgh because he's rolling and that happens. And she just started patting me and she was like, it's fine, he's playing good, he's good. And so to see when he does stuff like that and see him bounce back and not let it get to him, it kind of brings me back at state championship. He threw 2 picks in the first half, and bounce back and led us to a win. So he's kind of always had that even keel about himself.
It's interesting because you say and I say too, like he plays football super emotionally, but he's not an emotional roller coaster. Like there's never been a time where you've watched him play where you're like, okay, he's a little rattled. All right, he's a little over his skis here. And not to mention like some of the quarterbacks he played against, like say what you want about a guy like Phil Jurkovec or Brennan Armstrong. Like these are guys who had been in college football for, with COVID and with the redshirting years, some of these guys are 6 years into their college careers. And Kiren basically for the first time was playing college football last year. So for his ability to stay so even keeled in those situations against those teams, in those environments, and with an offense that is probably changing week to week as you maneuver the playbook more and more to his skill set. Incredibly, incredibly impressive. Last question that I have for you. This one came from Hokies Fly. No, it's actually this Hokies Fly. What areas have you seen the most development in Kyron's game since the bowl game?
I think in the leadership, as far as getting the team together, being doing things, making sure, and not. I think he's taking it to a different level. He did it in high school, but I think, last year in the spring, he was so focused on trying to win the job, trying to be the leader, but doing it the way he normally does by example. I think now he's taking that next step, and you can I just see how he is with his teammates and how they are with him, how the coaches are. I told my buddy the other day, because they were they're always like, man, that's pretty cool. Like when I went out there for the spring game, and the stuff on the field is cool, but the thing I get a kick out of is when people that are just in the community or just fans or they tell me they tell me about an experience when they met him at a restaurant at PK's. and, you know, he took time out to take a picture, or, you know, things like that. That's what I get the biggest proud moment that I get out of it, that, you know, the way he's handling that, you know, because I'm gonna be honest, I didn't realize it until you go out there with him. Being in Blacksburg is different. Like, it's different than being in Houston. Like, everybody knows you. Like, you walk into a restaurant, and when you start seeing people stop and they're looking, or you can kind of see that is that really him? Or, you know, they come over, you don't get to see, you don't understand it until you're in it. Because we've been on FaceTime where he's, you know, gone to Buffalo Wild Wings to get wings. And he's like, Dad, let me call you back. I think people want to take a picture, you know, but to actually see it and do it, and they come over to the table, you know, that I love the way that, you know, he's handled that, and kind of taking it in stride, and not, you know, because the last thing I want to hear is, you know, he's being aloof to anyone or something like that. But, you know, I tell him, you know, you have to, it's certain things I've always told him, certain things you have to do as a quarterback, as the face of the program. It's certain things you have to do, and you may not feel like it, but you have to do it, and you got to do it in a gracious way.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, I've really, really appreciated our time. I'm excited for this upcoming football season. Best of luck on the gridiron, yourself too. And any shout outs, anything you want to take us off on the end here?
Hey, I'm just ready to see Hokie Nation in Nashville, you know, get this thing kicked off. I can't wait. It's going to be an exciting year.
Looking forward to it, Coach. Appreciate you joining us.
Appreciate you.